Hi guys, and welcome back to another case in Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. So I think this is actually the last case in Ireland's Vanishing Triangle. I'm not too sure though, I'll have a look, and there could just be one more. And it's the case of Deirdre Jacob. Deirdre was born on the 14th of October in 1979 in a small area of Newbridge, County Kildare in Ireland. Deirdre lived in Roseberry, and that's where she grew up and spent most of her life. She went to primary and secondary school in the area, and then when she finished secondary school, she wanted to study to become a teacher. So she moved to London to study in St Mary's University. When her first year of university was over, she decided to go back home for the summer holidays, and she moved in with her parents, Michael and Bernadette, and her younger sister, Ciara. So halfway through the summer holidays, Deirdre had to go into Newbridge town, which was only a 25-minute walk from her house, to go and pay for her student accommodation for the following year. It was a normal day, the sun was shining, and it was during the summer holidays, so everyone was out and about and enjoying the good weather. That evening, when Deirdre's mother returned home, the door was locked. She thought this was quite unusual because Deirdre should have been home before her. So when she went into the house and realised that Deirdre wasn't there, she got a bit worried and so decided to call her family and Deirdre's friends to see if they had seen her or heard from her. But nobody knew where she was. So the family, fearing that something had happened to Deirdre, decided to call the local Garda station. In the meantime, the family themselves decided to do their own search for Deirdre, and along with some neighbours and friends, they all done a trace around the area to see if they could find her. Surprisingly as well, unlike other cases in Ireland's Vanishing Triangle, the guards were very involved from the beginning. The guards decided to retrace Deirdre's steps the following day. The guards were able to retrace Deirdre's steps right back to when she first went into Newbridge town, because the first place she visited was her grandmother's sweet shop. And then through various CCTV footage throughout the town and at different times, they were able to trace and see that Deirdre had entered into a bank to get a bank draft, and then she had went across the road to the local post office to post the bank draft to her friend in London, again to pay for her student accommodation. And then finally, her last trip was back to see her grandmother. Deirdre then left Newbridge town at approximately 2:30 p.m. on the 28th of July in 1998. Deirdre then began walking home at around 2:30 p.m. The Gardaí knew that Deirdre was on her own from the CCTV footage, and there was another 8 sightings of Deirdre from one of the back roads to her house. The last of these sightings was of Deirdre at her gate outside her house by a driver who was passing by at the time. This was at approximately 3 p.m, but nobody saw her after that. It is theorised that somebody could have pulled over outside the house and asked Deirdre for directions, and then subsequently kidnapped her. There is also a further 2 unconfirmed sightings of Deirdre at a cafe on Tara Street in Dublin, which was on the 30th and 31st of July. But there was no more evidence to back this up, and it was unconfirmed. It is also theorised that maybe somebody was waiting in their driveway near Deirdre's house for Deirdre to come home and simply called her over to their car and grabbed her. Locals have said that the road that Deirdre lived on was not a quiet road. It wasn't very busy, but it wasn't quiet. So definitely it would have been noticed if a car had pulled over on the road and talked to Deirdre. It was a busy day, it was a summer's day, and it was in the middle of the day. So surely somebody would have spotted it. Another theory was that at the time there were 3 young men from an ethnic minority group in Ireland who were driving around in a white van, and then suspiciously a week after Deirdre's disappearance fled to the UK, although this was just a theory. Also, a psychic who read up on Deirdre's case said that Deirdre was buried not far from her house, and her house was near a bogland. But again, this was just a theory as well, and there were just several stories that were told around the time of Deirdre's disappearance, but the guards didn't see any information or any evidence to prove that any of these theories were worth investigating. Unfortunately, like the other cases, not much evidence was found over the coming years, and as much as Deirdre's family canvassed with posters, TV interviews, everything that they could to find the whereabouts of Deirdre, the case went cold. That is, until there were reports of a letter that was sent to the Newbridge-based detectives in 2009. This letter was written by convicted murderer Thomas Stokes, and in it, Mr. Stokes wrote of how Larry Murphy had confessed to the killing of the 18-year-old during a drinking session in Arbor Hill Prison. Renowned rapist Mr. Larry Murphy had been doing work for Deirdre's grandmother in her sweet shop. Deirdre visited the shop where Murphy was working just hours before she went missing. Murphy was also very familiar with the area where Deirdre lived and disappeared. He had worked in the stables just half a mile from Deirdre's home. He had also visited Newbridge in the weeks before her disappearance, asking businesses if they wanted to buy any handmade toys that he had made, and he also acquired a job to do some work on a local pub. He returned to the village 2 months after her disappearance to carry out this work. The prisoner, who was serving a life sentence for murder, claimed that Mr. Murphy had admitted to murdering Deirdre and dumping her body in a lake. This confession is said to have taken place shortly before Larry Murphy had finished 10 of his 15-year sentence for the abduction, rape and attempted murder of a businesswoman in 2000. According to said inmate, Mr. Murphy had explained how he had scattered toys on the back seat of his car in order to make his victim feel more comfortable talking to him. The prisoner also claimed that Mr. Murphy had knocked Deirdre out before dragging her into the vehicle after he had asked her for directions. He then reportedly drove up into the Wicklow Mountains, and when Deirdre put up a struggle, he hit her in the head with a hammer and then dumped her body in a lake. With news of this letter, it prompted Garda searches with Garda divers and the Garda cold case unit to scour the countryside in Wicklow and also a secluded lake. This was in 2012 and 2013. Unfortunately, there was no evidence found through these searches. But in 2018, new information supplied to the Garda station resulted in Deirdre Jacob's case being upgraded from a missing persons investigation to a murder investigation. I just wanted to put in a little side note here as well because it could be relevant, but I'm not saying that it is. The guards also travelled to the UK in 2018 to question Mr. Larry Murphy, but he refused to cooperate. And in 2019, retired Sergeant Alan Bailey, who headed the SCRT, which was the Serious Crime Review Team in the day of Deirdre Jacob's missing persons case, and Mr. Noel Mooney provided witness statements about their interaction with the prisoner to the Garda team investigating the case. A file is currently with the DPP after officers submitted it in February of 2020 regarding the disappearance of Deirdre and whether charges can be brought against rapist Larry Murphy in the case. If the DPP decide to press charges against Mr. Murphy, a European arrest warrant will be sought. And that is all the information I have up to date. Hopefully, soon enough, the family will have some closure or at least some new information on this case. And Deirdre's family continue to appeal to the public for any information, no matter how small or irrelevant you might think it is. If you do have any information that you think might be helpful to the case, please contact the Garda detectives on 045 521 222, or there's also a confidential line which is 1800 666 111. Mr. Alan Bailey says that Deirdre's case was one that he regrets most for not solving, because he himself cannot understand how a woman who was seen in broad daylight right up until her front gate could just disappear without a trace. Mr. Bailey also had a daughter the same age as Deirdre at the time, so he took the case to heart. So that's all I have on the case of Deirdre Jacob. I hope you found this case informative, and I hope to do more in-depth videos on Operation Trace and also the Serious Crime Review team in future videos. So if you'd be interested in finding out more about those or other missing person cases in Ireland, then please subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care guys, stay safe, bye.